The era of the Clintons playing by their own set of rules just came to a screeching halt.
It really did.
Mm-hmm.
You know, for decades, there's been this aura of invincibility around them, a sense that no matter what the scandal was, they could just sort of glide over it. But looking at the alerts crossing the wire this morning, that aura just evaporated.
We were talking about a total capitulation.
Total surrender.
I mean, just hours before the House was set to move forward with a historic vote to hold them in criminal contempt, Bill and Hillary Clinton. They just folded.
Yep.
They've officially agreed to everything they spent the last 5 months fighting. Sworn depositions. In person, on the record.
And we have to be really clear about the stakes here. This was not some polite request they finally got around to answering. This was a siege.
Right.
The House Oversight Committee, led by Chairman James Comer, had a bipartisan coalition ready to pull the trigger. They had 9 Democrats ready to vote to hold a former president in contempt.
And that right there is the detail that changes everything.
It's the whole ball game.
When you have Democrats looking at the evidence and saying, we can't protect him anymore, you know the walls are closing in. So our mission today is to open up the stack and figure out exactly how we got here.
We're going to go through the amendment and the nature of a substitute, which is, just the formal name for the committee report plus the internal legal notes on executive privilege that basically destroyed their defense.
Yeah, we need to unpack why this isn't just another political squabble. It feels like a massive victory for the rule of law and, frankly, the beginning of the end for that two-tiered justice system.
That's it, the one where elites get a pass while the rest of us,
Right. So it's about establishing that prestige doesn't grant you immunity.
Exactly.
Let's start with the basics, because the media spin machine has been working overtime on this one. The narrative out there has been that this is just a fishing expedition or an attempt to embarrass Bill Clinton. But when you actually crack open the committee report, that argument just falls apart.
Immediately. You have to look at the legislative purpose. The Oversight Committee isn't a police department. They aren't prosecuting a crime.
Right.
Their job is to understand how systems fail so they can write better laws. In this case, they're investigating how Jeffrey Epstein's sex-trafficking ring operated with impunity for so long.
So they need to know who protected him. How did he evade justice? How did he move victims across borders?
Precisely. You can't write laws to stop the next Epstein if you don't understand how the first one worked.
Makes sense.
And to understand that, you need to talk to the people who were in his orbit. And according to the evidence in this report, Bill Clinton wasn't just in the orbit. He was effectively a resident.
Okay, let's talk about the flight logs. We've all heard about the Lolita Express for years. It's almost become this dark punchline.
Which is tragic.
It is, but what are the actual hard numbers the committee is working with?
The committee report is very specific here. The logs show Bill Clinton flew on Epstein's private plane 26 times.
26 times.
That is the number. 26 flights across at least 5 separate trips. Now, just pause and think about that.
Yeah.
That isn't catching a lift to a conference because your flight got canceled. That is a commute. That implies a pattern of behavior and a level of comfort with Epstein that just, it totally contradicts the casual acquaintance story.
It completely destroys that narrative. You don't fly 26 times with a guy you barely know.
And the report goes further, right? There's photographic evidence mentioned.
There is. The report cites a specific photo showing the former president receiving a massage from one of Epstein's victims.
That is, it's stomach churning. But from an investigative standpoint, it's crucial
evidence. It establishes intimacy. It dissolves any kind of professional distance defense.
Right.
You generally don't get a massage from a teenager if you're just there to discuss, global economic policy.
It suggests he was comfortable in that environment, comfortable with the people Epstein surrounded himself with.
And that comfort. That leads us to maybe the most explosive allegation in the report, in my opinion. The Vanity Fair incident.
The Vanity Fair incident. This is the story I think a lot of people missed, but it is wild.
Okay, what happened?
It's incredibly damaging. The report cites allegations that Bill Clinton didn't just know Epstein, he actively protected him. The allegation is that the former president physically stormed into the offices of Vanity Fair magazine.
Physically went to the newsroom.
Physically went there. And he allegedly threatened the editors. Told them not to write articles about sex trafficking regarding his good friend Jeffrey Epstein.
Wow. Think about the power dynamic there. You have a former president of the United States walking into a newsroom to kill a story about a known sex offender.
It's intimidation. Pure and simple. And if that's true,
Right.
it goes right to the heart of influence peddling, which is exactly what the committee is supposed to investigate.
Did powerful people use their status to shield a criminal enterprise?
Yes. If a former president is acting as a PR crisis manager for a sex trafficker, Congress needs to know that. It changes the entire texture of the investigation.
Yeah, it's not just did he see something, it's did he actively help cover this up?
And then there's also the birthday book.
Right, the gift.
Ghislaine Maxwell Epstein's co-conspirator, who is, currently in prison, gifted Epstein a book for his birthday.
Yeah.
The report notes that this book details a very personal, very intimate relationship between the Clintons and the Epstein-Maxwell circle.
So you have the flights, the massage photo, the threats to the press, and the personal gifts.
Right. So when the Clintons' lawyers argue they have no relevant information, the committee looks at that stack of evidence and says, we beg to differ.
Okay, so the evidence is overwhelming. The committee issues subpoenas in August 2025. And this is where that two-tiered justice system usually kicks in. Because if you or I got a subpoena about a sex trafficking ring, we'd be in a lawyer's office in an hour preparing to testify.
We wouldn't have a choice.
But the Clintons didn't do that. They spent 5 months playing games.
O is a masterclass in obstruction. Subpoenas go out in August. The committee wants depositions in October. The Clintons team, led by David Kendall, just starts the delay tactics.
First, it was scheduling conflicts, right?
Right. And then, when the dates were finally moved to December, they used a funeral as the reason they couldn't attend.
Which, look, funerals happen. We respect that.
Of course. And the committee respected it, too. They rescheduled for January 13th, 2026. But then the excuses shifted. It went from we can't make it to we shouldn't have to make it.
And this is where they tried the written statement ploy. I saw this in the news, and it made me laugh. They basically said, we'll write you a letter, and that should be good enough.
It's so arrogant. On January 13th, instead of showing up, Bill Clinton sends a written declaration. And his lawyers argue that other witnesses, like former Attorney General Bill Barr, were allowed to just send letters.
But that's not the same thing at all.
Not even close. And the committee hammered this point. Those other witnesses could prove they had no personal relationship with the subject. They were government officials doing a job.
Whereas Bill Clinton,
as we just established with the 26 flights and the massage photo, had a deep personal relationship.
And here's the thing about a written statement versus a deposition. You cannot cross-examine a letter.
Exactly. You can have your lawyers draft it for 3 weeks. You can parse every single word. You can leave out all the damaging context.
But if you are sitting in a chair under oath with a camera on you,
the committee can ask, what about this photo? Who is this girl? Why were you at that magazine office? You can't hide behind a carefully crafted sentence. They needed him in the room to test his truthfulness.
And let's be honest, Bill Clinton has a history of, let's call it creative grammar.
It depends on what the meaning of the word is.
Exactly. The committee knew that a written statement was worthless.
So they refused to show up. They tried the harassment defense, claiming this is just a Republican plot.
Which didn't fly. Asking about 26 flights on a sex offender's plane isn't harassment, it's fact-finding.
So then they pull out the big gun. Executive privilege.
Okay, this sounds very official. It sounds like something that should stop an investigation cold. Can a former president just shout executive privilege and walk away?
This is where the legal notes in our stack get really fascinating. And this is where the deep dive really pays off, because we need to explain why this argument failed so badly.
So the short answer is no?
The short answer is no, he can't. Executive privilege is designed to protect the office of the president.
The office, not the person.
Exactly. But it suffers from what the legal notes call erosion over time.
Erosion over time. That
Right.
makes sense. The further you get from the job, the less protection you have.
Right. But the biggest problem for Clinton here is the official versus private distinction.
This seems like common sense. Flying on the Lolita Express to a private island isn't exactly signing a peace treaty.
Not exactly. The committee report makes this argument very clearly. These were actions taken largely as a private citizen. Clinton left office in January 2001.
Right.
Most of these flights, the interactions, the alleged obstruction, that all happened after he was a civilian. You cannot claim executive privilege for things you did as a private citizen just because you used to be president.
It's like retiring from a company and then claiming company secrets for something you did 5 years later at a totally different job.
That's a great analogy. And on top of that, there is a legal standard called Mazars Light.
Mazars Light sounds like a bad beer.
It's actually a legal test from the court cases involving Donald Trump. So ironically, the legal precedents set to investigate Trump are now being used to compel Clinton.
How does it work?
Basically, courts apply reduced scrutiny to former presidents. The shield is thinner. And there's one more factor.
Yeah.
The incumbent president. Usually, to assert privilege, the guy currently sitting in the Oval Office has to back you up.
And where was the Biden-Harris administration on this?
Nowhere. Silence.
That is loud.
The legal notes point out that without the current president asserting the privilege, the former president is standing on very, very shaky ground.
So Bill was out there all by himself. No backup from the White House, no legal standing. The wall was crumbling.
And that leads us to the politics. Because usually, even if the law is against you, you can survive if your party circles the wagons.
But the wagons did not circle.
No. And this is the turning point. January 21st, 2026, the Oversight Committee meets to vote on holding Bill and Hillary Clinton in contempt of Congress.
And this wasn't a party line vote.
No, and that is what shocked the Clintons' legal team. 9 Democrats on the committee looked at the flight logs, looked at the obstruction, and voted aye.
That is massive. For 9 Democrats to break ranks, it signals the evidence was just overwhelming.
It signals that even his own party realized they couldn't defend this anymore. It became toxic. You can't claim to be the party of women's rights and then vote to protect a guy who flew 26 times with Jeffrey Epstein.
So the vote passes committee. It's heading to the full House floor. The Clintons are staring down a criminal referral to the DOJ.
And suddenly, they want to make a deal. This is the 11th-hour panic. We have reports from CNN and CBS detailing these desperate last-minute offers.
What were they trying to get?
Special treatment. They offered an informal interview in New York, not D.C., limited to 4 hours. And this is the kicker. They didn't want an official court reporter. They just wanted note takers.
Wait, no transcript?
No verbatim transcript.
That is laughable. Come hang out with us, we'll chat, nobody records it, and we'll call it even.
Chairman Comer saw right through it. He called it unreasonable. And he pointed to the precedent set with Hunter Biden.
Consistency matters.
It does. Comer said, "We are applying the same standard to the Clintons that we applied to the Bidens."
Which is exactly how it should be.
And the no transcript demand was a huge red flag. Why would you want an accurate record? Unless you plan on disputing it later.
Or unless you're afraid of perjury.
Exactly. So Comer says no deal. The full House vote is scheduled. The clock is ticking. And then today, February 2nd, the cave.
They capitulated.
Yeah.
Why now? Why drag it out for 5 months just to fold at the very end?
They did the math. They realized the full House vote was going to pass, and likely with significant Democrat support again.
And that goes to the Department of Justice.
And even if the DOJ has been friendly to Democrats, they would have been in a terrible position.
The optics would be awful.
Insane.
Yeah.
If the Biden DOJ refused to prosecute a bipartisan contempt citation about a sex trafficking investigation, it would look like the ultimate cover-up. It would confirm everything people suspect about the system being rigged.
The too big to jail card got declined.
It really did.
It is satisfying to see, honestly. This proves that if you push hard enough and you have the facts on your side, even the Clintons have to answer.
It validates the whole oversight process.
Yeah.
It forced a former president to do something he absolutely did not want to do, raise his right hand and answer questions about Jeffrey Epstein.
So what does this all mean for the listener? Why should the guy driving to work right now care that Bill Clinton is finally testifying?
It matters because it reestablishes a baseline for the justice system. For so long, Americans have felt like there's a two-tiered system, one for the elites in Washington and one for the rest of us.
Immediately. If we ignored a subpoena, we'd be in handcuffs.
This shows that the system can still work if the pressure is applied correctly, that no one is above the law.
And it's a victory for the victims, too. Seeing the Clintons forced to sit down and answer questions, that has to feel like some small measure of justice.
It's a big step, a huge step.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a thought. We talked about those 9 Democrats.
The ones who crossed the aisle.
Right. 9 members of Bill Clinton's own party looked at the evidence in the Epstein files and decided they could not protect him anymore. They saw something that made them say, enough.
That's the most telling part of this whole saga.
So, here's the question. If they were willing to hold him in contempt, if even his allies looked at the confidential files and said, we can't defend this, what exactly is in those files that the rest of us haven't seen yet?
Because it must be damning.
It must be. And now, Bill Clinton has to go under oath and explain it. We will be reading that transcript the second it drops. Thanks for diving deep with us today. The rules have changed, folks. Stay tuned.